And if we haven't mentioned it already, we record all of these sessions just so that for those of you who maybe have to hop off or join late, you can refer back to those recordings. So we'll send those out after each workshop. But so yeah, welcome. Excited to be here. It's been a long road to get these workshops started. So we're just so excited that we finally have our civics team here. We're excited to get going and to start this workshop series tonight. So on the next slide, you'll see we really love our quotes here with our Tribal Civics Project, really just as a way to kind of honor the different contributors that have helped us develop this course. So this first one I'll share with you all is from Levi Brown, who you'll be hearing from later tonight. And it says that it's not that the government should take care of the people, it's that we, the people, should take care of each other. We are the government. And I think this quote really gets to kind of what we are envisioning when we think about tribal civics. And we'll talk more about this later tonight about how even though our people didn't call ourselves governments or governance, we had ways of taking care of each other and being good relatives. And really, at the base of it all, that is what governments do, and what our tribal governments do is kind of look out for each other. So this is a very indigenous thing, and we're looking excited for ways to further indigenize this idea of civic engagement. So I know we've done some quick introductions, but just wanted to do kind of some official introductions of our program team. So I am Michaela Madrid. I am the program manager for our tribal governance support work. I'm a member of the Lower Brule Lakota Sioux tribe. I was born and raised in South Dakota, so born in Pierre, lived in Martin and White River a little bit, and then ended up back in Pierre. Then came out to Spearfish to go to Black Hills State, and loved it so much that I decided to stay here. So that's where I live with my family. My educational background is in political science, sociology, and policy analysis. So that's a long way of saying I'm kind of a government and engagement nerd. Professionally, I've worked with the Department of Interior, with the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, and then also in the grassroots MMIW movement with the Sovereign Bodies Institute. When I'm not working, I'm being a new mom, and so I've got a almost 7-month-old baby named Maya Mashte. So she was born in February during a blizzard, making Mashte as a middle name kind of ironic, but she sure brought the sun to us. So that's pretty much what keeps me busy when I'm not working. But really love to spend time with her and just kind of be creative and spend some time outdoors in the hills when I can. So before I keep going, I will pass it over to Michelle to do her introduction.
Language. Okay, so bonjour, my name is Michelle Redday, and I'm a program coordinator at the Native Governance Center. I'm a member of the Bay Mills Indian community and was born and raised in Michigan, but currently live now in Bemidji, Minnesota, with my partner. My educational background is actually in higher education, community organizing, and social work. And my professional experience has also been in higher education in the tribal college movement, as well as in K through 12 schools and early childhood education. I have experience in grant writing and really passionate about language revitalization work. I enjoy being outdoors with my partner and children, doing seasonal activities. So this picture right here just kind of speaks to summer for me of berry picking, and can't see all the mosquitoes, but there definitely were lots of mosquitoes that day. And then the quote that I just wanted to share was from Chief Wilma Mankiller, which just says, "The most fulfilled people are the ones who get up every morning and stand for something larger than themselves. They are the people who care about others, who will extend a helping hand to someone in need, or will speak up about an injustice when they see it." And to me, this really connects to our civic engagement work, because we're wanting to bring all of the members of your community together to work to improve your nation. And I'm just really excited to see what you all come up with to share with your people. I'll go ahead and pass it back to Michaela. Oh, Just
I
kidding.
actually
I
think
keep
you
that.
have.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead. Before diving into what we're going to do today, we're going to quick give you an overview of what our time together in this Tribal Civics Workshop series will look like. We have 4 virtual workshops. The first one is today, where we'll be doing the overview of what Tribal Civics even is. The goal of today is really to get everyone up to speed and on the same page around what Tribal Civics is, why it's important, and how to get everyone excited about bringing this programming to your community. Our next workshop will focus on gathering information. Through this, we'll identify some goals that you all have for creating a program in your area. We'll also identify some possible topics that you'd like to cover and do a little bit of community mapping of resources so that you can start to identify where some of these bits of information live within your community. And for many of you, it lives within you with the incredible work that you've been doing already and the knowledge that you carry about change making in your own community and leading change for your nation. So sometimes this information is books, but like I mentioned, sometimes it's also just people in your community who may want to be involved or who can help present during your workshop. In our third workshop, we'll then be pulling all of that together. Obviously, some of you have a lot of experience putting courses together, so I'll be looking to learn from you all and your expertise in education and in social work and leading constitutional reform expertise. So we're looking to pull this together in an engaging way and then gather feedback from your participants too. Like you'll learn from our workshop series and from Levi and his lessons in Leech Lake. Really, it is an evolving process. You know, hearing feedback from your community can really inform what you'll want to include and who you'll want to include in future civics projects that you'll be doing. After the third workshop, we'll really get to dive into action planning, which pulls all of the pieces together. It will clarify your tribal civics project goals, roles, responsibilities, timing, and partners. You'll leave after these 2 days with clear tasks and responsibilities for each of your team members or other folks that you may want to get involved in the project. And then you'll be able to go ahead and really get those steps implemented in order to launch your project. Finally, we'll end with workshop 4, where we'll be doing our reflections and lessons learned. The big point here I want everyone to notice is that you will do a presentation that'll be about 25 minutes. You'll do it all together as a group, and it doesn't need to be super formal, but we'll be just looking for you to share your tribal civics education plan and receive some feedback. Throughout these workshops and the action planning sessions, we'll really build to this plan. So you shouldn't have to do too much work outside of it. And then after each workshop, we'll have recommendations on things to do when you're implementing. Also in this last workshop, we'll bring Levi Brown back so he can share lessons learned through implementing Leech Lake Civics, and he'll also be able to provide feedback on your Tribal Civics project. So now we'll get to look at what we're actually going to do today. You all should have received this in your email, so there shouldn't be too many surprises. After this opening and welcoming, we'll do some kinship building activities, which should be fun, even if you all already know each other. Hopefully you get to learn a little bit more about one another and share some laughs. So we'll get to have a little bit of fun, and then we'll dive into the content, the overview of what the Tribal Civics Project is and why it's important. At 6:10, we'll give you a quick health break and give you a chance to step away from your computer and stretch. And then when we return from the break, we'll spend time learning about Leech Lake Civics. We'll get to ask questions to Levi around his project, challenges, or fun things that he's learned while implementing it over the past few years. And we'll follow that with another 5-minute health break. And then we'll end our break and come back for a visioning activity of what you think success will look like for your Tribal Civics project, and really imagining that together, what this will look like in action. And then by 8 p.m., you'll have made it through your first workshop. All right. Any questions about today? All right. Well, hearing none, we'll move forward. We wanted to create some meeting agreements. I'm sure some of you are familiar with doing these in your various meetings and programs, but if not, it's a really helpful way for us to be effective and put our minds together in a respectful way. I've thrown a couple of these meeting agreements here on the slide. We do love to see your faces, especially since we're in a smaller group, but we also understand that it can be exhausting to be on video all the time, especially for those of you who've already been in meetings all day. So if you need to turn your camera off at any time, totally okay. We also understand needing to take breaks outside of the dedicated health break time. So certainly, let us know if you need to step away just to stretch. And then when you'll be ready to come on back. I'm sure you're all super familiar with Zoom at this point. We did send out some Zoom instructions, but of course, please feel free to use the chat box, which folks are already engaging with. So thank you for that. And then we do ask that everyone stays muted when they aren't talking. And everyone's already doing a great job of that as well. So thank you for that. And then also, when you do want to share, when you're done contributing, let others know that you're finished by saying that's it or thank you. Can even use your language in that way, just so that we know you're done. And of course, we want you to have fun. These workshops can be really engaging, and will also have you think critically about work that's already been done in your own community and how you want to improve forward. So making sure to have that laughter and that movement, and we'll be sure to create those opportunities for you as well. With that, now I'm going to pause, and we have room for you to add meeting agreements if you'd like. So I can take a second and see if anyone has any additional agreements they'd like to add for the group. All right. Well,
I would just say, let's just be good relatives to each other.
wish for that. Yes, definitely. All right. Well, if anything else comes to mind around the meeting agreements, we can always add these and edit as we go throughout the workshop series. But now we'll go ahead and get into the fun part.
All right, so that is me, the designated fun person. Just curious, are folks familiar with Jamboard? I know I've seen Cassandra, we've done Jamboard with you before. What about others? Have you done Jamboard before? See no from Nakina. What about Jackie or Alice? Have you used Jamboard?
This is Jackie. No, I haven't.
Okay. Alice?
No, I haven't, but I did get on and request it to edit, so I can add stuff on, but it wouldn't let me. So
Okay.
yeah, so I'll have to get back on again. And I set up an email just for this.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for doing that. So we'll drop the link in the chat. For those of you who aren't familiar, it is pretty easy. We tried to give some instructions here. We will be using Jamboard kind of throughout these workshops, but if it really is something that you're not comfortable with or kind of engaging in that way, we also have Michelle here to add to the Jamboard for you too. So it doesn't have to be a barrier, but it is kind of a fun way to still be engaged virtually. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to orient you to Jamboard and also to learn a little bit about each other. So I would love for you all to get into the link that Michelle will drop in the chat here. We have put your names on yellow stickies, and so you can navigate through the Jamboard up at the top. There's this, it's like the little square with the arrows, and so if you just click the arrow until you find your name, and then we'd love for folks to get in there and to add a photo that represents who you are. Share a little bit about why you wanted to participate in the project, and then you can add a GIF or a photo that kind of describes your feelings towards civics, and then on the pink one is a boring or fun fact. That one, folks always ask for a fun fact. Sometimes that can be high pressure, so we're open to boring facts as well. And then if you aren't able to get into the Jamboard, like Alice, I know you're driving. If you just wanted to kind of keep in your mind kind of your answers to those questions, we'll go around and have folks share out. So we'll give you some time to fill this out or to think to yourself what your answers are. Do folks have any questions about the activity before we turn on some brainstorming music?
This is Jackie.
Hi.
I don't have a computer, so I'm using my phone. So I'm
Okay.
on Zoom at the same time and I can barely see everything, so.
Yeah.
It's
No, yeah, that is totally fine. It's very hard to do it on your phone, so we don't
Yeah,
expect you to get in. So if you just want to kind of think about your answers to those questions, we'll go around and have folks share, and you can just share that way. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I see a couple folks in the Jamboard, so we'll just play some music and let you all work on that a little bit. Please let us know if any questions come up, but we'll give you about 5 minutes.
But I've got to believe that change is a choice and it can start with me.
sorry, I'm unable to get to my
And I've
name.
been thinking about our mother.
Oh, so if you are able to get into it on your phone, up at the top, I guess I'm not sure if it looks different on the phone, but there should be little arrows up at the top that you can click to the side till you find your name. And it looks like you should be on frame
Saying we've gotta
4.
make this right. 'Cause hate can't be the face of the American dream.
Hey Jackie, this is Cassandra. Are you able to use chat? If you want to drop your stuff into the chat, I could copy and paste it for you if you want.
We've got a long way to go.
I'm not very computer savvy here, so I'm trying to,
We've got to believe.
yeah.
No worries, and it's really not a big deal to get into the Jamboard if you can't. So just
Mhm.
maybe just kind of do some self-reflection and think about like why you think civics is important, and maybe be prepared to just share a little bit about who you are and kind of what you want folks to know about you.
And then I'm trying to add or edit in there, but it only says I can view only.
Huh, let me see. It should be open. Can you request access? Oh, there it is. And
Yeah, I requested access.
here we go.
I think it's because I might have signed in for my work account too, so
Oh,
that
got
could
you.
be
Okay.
why.
I just granted you editing access,
Okay,
so you
thank
should be
you.
able to get in there now. And
Okay.
then Valentina, the question about how do you add images or text. So over on the sidebar, there on the left, where there's like the marker, the eraser, the cursor, there's the little photo button. So Michelle, if you could go down to that one right there. So if you click that, then you can upload a photo that way. And so you can do one that's already on your computer. You can also do a Google search if you'd like. Put a cute dog in there if you feel like that represents who you are. And then to add text, so all you'll have to do is double click on the sticky note that you're wanting to add to, and then you should be able to type from there. All right, so we'll give folks just a couple more minutes. Again, don't stress if you don't get everything added. You'll be able to share verbally too.
There's gotta be some hope. There's gotta be some hope. There's gotta be some way for you to send your dogs away and to leave the land alone. It's gotta be a crime.
All righty, well, we'll go ahead and start sharing. So since we are already on the slide with Cassandra, Cassandra, would you mind going first?
Sure. So I just put the picture of myself that's done by Rapid Creek by Founders Park. We like to do the M Hill hike. It's really fun, and my sons can do it, so we really enjoy that hike. And then the picture on the bottom left is some artwork by Tom. I mentioned inviting him here, but he's actually in California. He's just busy. But anyway, he did that artwork, and it's called Ripe Choke Cherry Moon. And he didn't really give me a lot of context to it, but then when I look at it, I just see like it looks like looking forward to like all these possibilities and into the unknown, but going towards it gracefully. And that's how I kind of feel going into the civics course, is exactly like that. So and I just, why I wanted to be in this is I noticed a lot of people, mainly younger people, have kind of a negative perception of government, and like seeing all the fighting and arguing, and I just wanted to kind of shift that and focus on the power of the people and like the voice of the future generations. Um, Boring or fun fact? It might be boring. I have two sons and my sister has four, so like when we get together, there's just like a ton of boys, and yeah, I just put that, it was first thing that came to mind. So
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, that is a lot of boys, and we won't make anyone make any determinations if each other's facts are boring or fun. That'll just be a little for us to decide quietly on our own. So thanks for going first, Cassandra. Let's see. Nakina, would you like to go next? Again, it's okay if you didn't get things added to the Jamboard if you just want to share a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I was trying to like copy photos and GIFs, but it wouldn't allow. I don't know. It just wouldn't work. Technology. So I guess one interesting or boring fun fact. It was pretty fun for me. I am a triplet, so I live this life with my sibling, my my two other sisters, and so that's something I get to share. Let's see why I wanted to participate in this project. I'm just very passionate about working with our young people in a variety of different ways. So I think it's important that we invest in them, that they are our future. So I think it's important for them to know what it means to be this to do civic engagement and to be engaged, and also to help them in developing skills that will last them a lifetime, that'll be beneficial for our tribal communities.
Mhm. And then if you were to add a photo, what would it be of and why does it describe who you are?
I was trying to find I was just trying, the one I was trying to put in there was a photo with me and my kids. And it's just because I do things and not just my biological kids, but my stepkids. And then I found other pictures of where I used to work with students too. So that would have been something I put up there too, because I feel like that's why I do the work that I do in education, just because it's for them. So it would be one of those pictures. And then a GIF. I was thinking of a GIF or the GIF whatever photo. I love this kind of stuff. So it would have been something all like hearted up or something.
Perfect. Thanks very much. So let's see. Jackie, can we go to you? And Jackie, if you just wanted to share like why you wanted to be part of this project.
Hold on. I was looking for the mute button here.
Oh,
Sorry.
you found it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of made me interested is I've been in tribal government as a council representative since 2012, and before that, I was working for the higher education program for 12 years, and education was pretty much where I ended up. I do have a master's degree in public health administration and a bachelor's degree in business administration. So, just coming back and trying to do better for the people, I've really found that our tribal government was, once I understood it, being in the work field I think I worked for the tribe like about 25 years prior to getting into council. So I kind of noticed a lot of things that just wasn't working. And I thought, well, I'm just going to throw my hat in there and get in and try to help out. But it's not easy. We have 21 council representatives. In the past, it was 20, but past couple administrations, it went up another one. So then I noticed that the people didn't have any kind of power. It was just all council. So I think that constitutional reform was one of the factors that I really wanted to focus on. But when you're in council, you just don't get that support. So I believe coming from the people and teaching them about the whole process and what government's about is really something that our people need to know, and maybe buying into it and getting them to realize that we need to make some kind of a change. So that's kind of just something that I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then if you were to show us a photo that represents who you are, what would it be and why does it represent you?
A photo of something?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of thinking about maybe like a little poodle or something. Kind of timid, but really wants to, active, wants to get something done.
Yeah, those poodles can be mean when they need to be too. So,
That's what I mean.
especially those
Yeah.
big ones.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of a toy poodle.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Okay.
And then last one, do you have a boring or fun fact that you would like to share with us?
The boring thing, probably just, my grandkids think I'm boring. I don't like to do too much. But the fun fact is, they like family gatherings and things like that. So that's the fun part of it, just having family together.
Beautiful. Well, if you can see, Michelle put a very cute photo of a small poodle there for you. So we've got you represented on the Jamboard.
Thank you.
And then next we'll go to Alice. So Alice, just kind of the same questions. If you maybe want to start with why you wanted to participate in this project.
Hold on.
Hello.
I got cars going by here, so.
Oh, no worries. And if
Okay.
it's safer, like I know you're in your car, so you don't need to have your camera on if you feel more comfortable without.
Okay. So on that question, can you say it again?
Yeah, so it was why do you think civics is important and why did you want to be part of this project?
I think for the educational part for our younger generation that's coming up, they have something to guide them on, you know, other options that are out there rather than just the way it is right now. So I think it'd be interesting to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you. And then if you were to add a photo that represents who you are, what would it be and why?
I had a photo picked out of I enjoy our grandchildren's and our kids' birthday parties, and I have this one that stands out. There were 4 or 5 of them standing. I think it was my grandson Gabriel's birthday, and he's into he at that time he was into like superheroes,
Mm-hmm.
and so all the kids had superhero masks on, and they all posed, and after I developed the you know, got to see the picture and stuff really clear, it looked like a poster, and I was like, oh my god, this looks like a poster. So that always stands out to me, and every time we have birthday parties, I always enjoy capturing the kids because, you know, it's a happy moment, you know, especially when you make them happy. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the picture I would put on there,
Oh, I love
and
it.
I'll
I
share that
can
with you.
visualize it. Cool. Yeah, if you want to share that, we'll add it to the Jamboard for you later on. And then last, is there a boring or fun fact that you would like us all to know about you?
Well, probably boring for others because my grandkids always say, "Is that satisfying, Grandma?" Watching that. But to me, it's satisfying. I enjoy watching DIYs, and
Mm,
I get a lot of my ideas, you know, the easy ones that I can do.
yeah.
So I like to watch DIYs. I also watch them on just numerous topics. So to me, it's fun. To the kids, it's boring. So like one of my grandsons always says, "Is that satisfying, Grandma?"
Jeez.
So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I like those DIYs too, but I also like the like DIY fails where like people try to do it and it just doesn't look anything close. So that's me when I try to do all those fancy things on the internet.
I don't do the fancy stuff. I do the easy ones.
There you go. Oh, well, thanks for sharing, Alice. And then last, but certainly not least, we'll go over to Tina, who I see was able to fill it out. So if you wanted to walk us through what you put in the Jamboard, Tina.
Okay, most definitely. So let's begin why. The reason why is, I think most importantly, is given my background in education and just, you know, as Indigenous people, we're always the first teachers in anything we do. And so growing up, our first teachers were our relatives, and that primary education and teaching us the values and making sure that it's passed down from one generation to the next is so important. And with that, you know, we may be, you know, in this process creating a path for others, but you know, we have to constantly cultivate that path. It just doesn't sit there dormant. And so I think that's another primary area that, as you know, Nakina talks about, you know, being a good relative is we have to be that caretaker and continue to help hone and shape that future, yeah, with the talents that were given to us. And so the images selected is of you know, my granddaughter and myself. So we both, my whole family still participates in the culture. We dance, and this is my granddaughter, and it was just a good time that her and I had, and we went to this Wachipi, and it just was a good feeling for us after being you know, staying at home, shelter in place during COVID, and not being able to participate in our cultural gatherings and seeing relatives and so forth. It was just one of those happy moments together for her and I to be out there. And the images at the bottom, you know, when I talk about the path and being culturally responsive to our teachings, it's not recreating the will, but awakening and, like I said, nurturing what is already there. So looking to that future generation, and for me, it's looking at my grandchildren's grandchildren and what's going to
Mm.
be in it for them. So
Mm.
with all that, fun fact, I guess I'm a little boring. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and so you can tell I kinda get bossy and wanna guide and control everything. And I've been married for 30 years and being a ranch hand because we ranch, so therefore, you know, strip away all the titles and the experience, and I just come down to the plain ranch hand of helping around the place and making sure things get done.
I love that. That's a great balance. You know, it's so important to do that physical work with your hands. So appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, both Michelle and I added ours too, but just for the sake of time, we'll skip over those. Feel free to browse through our fun facts if you'd like, and we'll answer questions about it later if you have any. So yeah, now that we have taken some time to know each other, I know you all do know each other. We live in small communities in some way or another, but it's just so important to build that kinship and to really get to know each other on a deeper level since you're going to be doing this really great work together. So before we get into kind of our official presentation, we do have a little video that we'll play for you all. Yeah, so you'll notice some familiar faces in this video.
It's a civic responsibility. People hear that and they think back to their civics class when they're in high school and they just kind of automatically shut off. But we really need to revitalize that energy behind it and really engage with our young people so that they can bring their energy into what we're trying to do. We need to reach back into our own history and make the connection in regards to how we were civically involved.
Think about how much time is spent with every elementary student, middle school student, high school student on civics. I teach US civics, Minnesota civics, maybe even county, maybe even the local, issue with the city. When do we talk about the original, the first people? When do we have that conversation?
It's not a foreign concept. It's not something that was necessarily introduced when colonizers showed up. We invented democracy on this continent. We actively engaged and thought about the future of our young people and our elders because we had to. It was just a survival mechanism.
When I look at telling that narrative, it lays the foundation for nation building. Everybody has to have ownership. Everybody has to believe in what we are doing. Because once they believe, they'll own it, just as though they built it solely by themselves.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. So yeah, just kind of like the video says, when we really think about civics in the context of the history of who we are as Indigenous people, civic engagement isn't anything new. And it's really important that we understand this and kind of reclaim this, that like, yeah, these IRA kind of Western style governments were put on us, but the founding concept of democracy, of everybody coming together to provide and be a good relative to each other is very indigenous. And so when we looked at some of our traditional ways of organizing traditional governments, we saw a focus on collective welfare. And so we saw our nations that enjoyed an egalitarian society based on cooperation, sharing, hospitality. Thinking about how important consensus building was. A really great example is looking to our relatives in the Northeast, the Haudenosaunee, who had this kind of central pillar that all council leaders needed to be of one heart, one mind, and one law. And so this was a requirement for tribal and confederacy decisions to be unanimous. And so this meant that leaders really had to consider and balance all viewpoints in every decision. So when we think about kind of our current systems today, we vote on a majority rules. And, there's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's efficient, moves things along. There's that kind of clear, definitive answer of who won the election. But it also creates this winner-loser situation, which can create divides in our communities that we see the real-life implications of every day. And so maybe there's a way that we can get back to consensus building a bit in order to kind of jive a little more with the way we traditionally did things as a people. There was also this focus on self-sufficiency, so a clear sense of responsibility both for one's own actions and also for the welfare of others. Children were taught early on to be self-sufficient. And so this self-sufficiency paired with the outlook for the collective welfare really just meant that we kind of empowered each other, powered our young people to have those skills that we need to take care of ourselves so that we're able to, make the change that we want to. And so even traditionally, if there was something that we didn't like in our community, it was kind of on ourselves to make that change. And so that thread really carries today into ways of civic engagement. And so kind of moving forward into today, what is tribal civics? Why is it important? Well, when you think about civics, kind of the official dictionary definition is that it's a social science dealing with the rights and duties of citizens. That's kind of, fine, but really what we're trying to do here is encourage and empower individuals to engage in governmental processes by learning about the rights and responsibilities of individuals and the roles of functions of government institutions. We as tribal citizens, we have the power to address issues and solve problems in our own communities. It doesn't have to be the sole responsibility of our elected tribal leaders. And it really shouldn't be, because we have too many issues that a small group of elected leaders can't possibly address every single issue. And so that's why we really need to empower our people to come together to make those positive changes, in addition to the great work that our tribal councils are doing. And so, like I mentioned, we love our quotes. We have one here from Dr. Twyla Baker, who you saw in that video, that says, "There's no one individual who can fix everything for us. It's going to take everyone. Casting all this pressure on singular human beings, no matter how amazing they are, isn't fair and absolves us of our responsibility. Ask yourself where you could be helping." And so really need to kind of empower folks to know that there is a role that they can play within government. If they don't like what's going on, they have an opportunity to change it. If they like what's going on, they have an opportunity to get involved and keep it that way. And so that's really what we're trying to do with this civics project, is to help you really educate and empower your community to make change. So then on the next slide, thinking about the impact of a civic education. So through civics education, you can revitalize Indigenous knowledge by integrating our culture and traditional knowledge into our governance systems. We're able to build community confidence in our systems, which increases engagement. So we know it's so important for folks to believe in and support our tribal governments for them to really be effective. And so one way to do this is to integrate culture and traditions so people can really see themselves and kind of what makes them who they are reflected in the governmental institution. So tied with that, it restores hope and pride for our communities. Again, this building of community confidence in our system also restores pride in our communities. We come from really strong, resilient, and really powerful people, and it's time that we're really proud of that. And I know we are, but I know there's also a lot of things in our communities that can make it hard to be proud of who we are and where we come from. And that is a very colonial mindset. Kind of that's what the colonizers wanted. They didn't want us to have that pride in who we are. And so this is a way that really allows us to hope for the future and know that we can really make a difference if we harness the wisdom of our ancestors. Again, going back to this, teaching us to be good relatives is really important because that kinship is so sacred and powerful. And really, when it boils down to it, being a good relative means working to make life better for everyone, which can include things like attending council meetings and asking tough questions. Civic engagement can encourage a seventh generation mindset, so it helps us create these sustainable systems that work for the whole community because the whole community is engaged and involved in having a say in what's going on. So this will make sure that the system will continue to work in the future, and if it's not working, have systems to change and modify it to work. Then lastly, it strengthens tribal sovereignty. And this is really, to me, the most exciting thing about civic education is that we really need these sovereignty warriors who are armed with the knowledge about our history, culture, and hard-fought rights. So that's just kind of really quickly what civics is, why it's important, and what the impact is. And so I've been talking a little bit, and now we'd really love to hear from you all with some conversation. So kind of the flow of how we'll do these conversations, we're trying to make space for our introverts in the room who like to do a little bit of self-reflecting before speaking as a group. So we'll give you all about 5 minutes to individually brainstorm the questions below. If you want to get into the Jamboard and answer them directly on the Jamboard, you can. Otherwise, we'll add to them yourselves. So the first question is, how would you define or explain tribal civics? What comes to mind when you hear tribal civics? And then the question 2 is, why do you think tribal civics initiative is important? So what is it and why is it important? So any questions about the activity before we give you some brainstorming time? Cool. We'll set a timer for 5 minutes and then we will come back. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and start doing the share out. So we'll fade the music. Perfect. All right, so let's see. Cassandra went first last time, so maybe we'll ask Tina, would you like to share how you define tribal civics?
Yes, ma'am. So when I define tribal civics is that it's a steward of traditional tribal governments and teaching that is important as part of that cultural fit, meaning we have an opportunity to shape the curriculum that meets our culture and our history and our protocols and our norms within our tribal nations. And so that it fits that history where it gives us an opportunity to have that voice. And so in combination of all of that, that would be my definition of tribal civics. And then the importance is I feel that it's a springboard to help the understanding and the rationale to develop laws that protect our people, our culture, and our nation. So that's, I feel, is the importance because it is that springboard for further development in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to add on what they wrote down?
So I had mine in there if you wanted to change mine to a sticky note. I was like, what do I do? A text or a sticky note? And I first thought sticky note, and then I was like, yeah, I should have went with my first, instincts first. But sorry.
No,
So
there's no wrong way. You're good.
okay. So I like Tina said too, like it's important for like that's what comes to mind with for me is the tribal government structure, tribal history, traditional forms of government, but also the state and federal structures. I think it's very important for it to know all, it's not, how do I say this in a way? I mean, it's important for us to know all different structures and things in order so that we can work together on issues and especially when working with legislation at a national level. So that those were things that came to mind for me. And then why do I think it's important? I think it's important to be able to so I love like processes and procedures and seeing things being I guess and being a part of those things too. So I think it's important that for this plan to be able to have a process on what this kind of engagement will look like. And then engaging communities like in kind of like what we did with constitutional reform. So how our plan went with during that process, it's just important. Otherwise, if you're not going to be able to engage the constituents, you're not going to have any involvement or investment into it. So
Absolutely. Thank you. I think
and sorry, we all have a responsibility. I feel like we all have a responsibility. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really the key part of this civics work is like helping folks understand that they do have that role and responsibility. Because some folks might not really even know that they have rights as a citizen to engage in that way. So it can be really empowering to let people know that. Thank you. Anyone else like to share?
I guess I can. This is Jackie.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, my point was it define and explain civics.
Yep, so it would be, yep, you got it.
Yeah, and what comes to mind when you hear tribal civics? This
Yep.
is, for myself, the tribal, definition kind of like entails everything of our traditional values in the past and our way of life, on how traditionally how we operated as a, government. Because we did have our own way of governing ourselves back then. So that's kind of what I come up with the definition. If you hear these dingings, it's people constantly texting in a group. So, and 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 it's the other one is the way a way to teach our government, a tribal government, in a ways from the past and their leadership and how they operated. So that's kind of what what comes to mind when you hear tribal civics. That's what I think about, how they operated in the past, and how they were so successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that third one was, why do you think tribal civics is important?
Yep.
To bring back that trust in our government. I feel like we got to be a little more, um, like you said, bringing back that understanding of our structures in the past, teaching our values, and trying to incorporate, maybe bring about a different form of government, and showing the people of how, maybe change from the IRA, that boilerplate government that was given to us isn't working. So I feel like maybe just having something that can change, giving them the education and informing them, just like empowering them, that they have a great deal, or a part of the whole system of change. So that's kind of like, I hope I'm doing it right anyway, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There's no wrong way to do this. So, but definitely thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
And so we still got some time. Cassandra or Alice, did you want to share or add anything?
Hi, it's Cassandra. I was thinking about like pre-colonial times when I think of like tribal civics and how women were so empowered, and aside from like war, women were the decision makers for meal times, childbearing, chores around the camp, just basically everything else besides war. And I feel like tribal civics brings that equality piece. So after America was established and women were excluded from their civics, uh, I just feel like tribal civics is a lot about empowering women and bringing women to the table, and how women are usually the backbone of our nations, like in modern day. Even just looking around this room, look at it's like majority women here, and so that just kept coming up for me as like the importance of empowering women moving forward.
Made me think of that like song, like "Who Run the World? Girls." Obviously, that's how the world is these days, or should be. All right, and Alice, is there anything else you wanted to add? All right. Well, so hearing none, we'll go ahead and go into our health break just a couple minutes early. And so we'll give you about 10 minutes. So if folks could be back at 6, well, that's annoying. We'll give you a little more than 10 minutes. If you could come back at 6:20, we'll get started with Levi. It is 6:20, so we'll go ahead and get started again. So if folks could either flip on their cameras just to let me know they're here, send one of these fun little emojis so I know you're there. Send me something in the chat. All right. looks like we are gathered. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Levi as the inspiration for this course to talk a little bit more about Leech Lake Civics and all that good stuff. So, Levi, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do I have the power to share? Am I granted that authority by the IRA government?
You hereby have it
Just kidding. Totally
granted.
talking smack. I just listened to the conversation today. It was this earlier was reminding me of a lot of conversation I have with my own family. So, Anine, hope everybody's doing good. Want to thank you all for taking the time this evening because you were all sharing this road or journey you're about to go on, and I can tell you that I've been on it for about 6 years now, and it's one of the most rewarding ones I've ever been on. When I look back on life and where things are, and legacies and what you do and leave in your community, I can tell you, every day I meet a little bit more or see a little bit more of the difference it makes. So, your first steps here taking this, I can only tell you it'll get hard, but it's rewarding as time goes on. So with that said, I'll just kind of I'm gonna share. I'm not gonna read off slides or anything, but I do want to share, so give you some context for what you're hearing me say. What am I saying? How does it, basically how is it I do what I do and why I'm doing what I do? If that makes any sense. So a little background on me so you kind of know who this person is. And I think that matters because even when I teach civics, whether it's at our tribal college, it's with our gaming, our state, our government staff, whoever it might be, having a conversation with our schools, anybody, our council, our tribal council, our tribal governments, whoever it might be. The messenger, a lot of times, is sometimes just as important as the message they're delivering, meaning that, in our communities, because of historic norms, we tend to, we have to know who these people are. Why are they speaking us the way they are? Where is it coming from? And that matters. So a little background on me, just because it does matter, and some of you brought it up before, was age. So my generation, I'm 40 years old. So I was born in 83. That means that my mother, she was born in 75, or she's 67. And so it's one of those deals where why I reference that is because the first 8-9 years of my life was pre-gaming, right? And so on my reservation, Leech Lake in north central Minnesota, the lifestyle that is today is much different because of gaming. And I share that because I feel like I'm one of the last ones who still remembers what it was, to go to the Kamad hut, to, have butter and sugar sandwiches. I just had this conversation with my kids yesterday, around this conversation. So that age matters because I think when we were talking, I heard some folks sharing about age, young people, and then older people in the community. That all matters because your vantage point of the community matters, right? Or matters. So my age, and then also what I've done, what I do, who I am. I am a Anishinaabe. I'm a Anishinaabe man from northern Minnesota. Grew up my whole life on Leech Lake, besides the years I went and got my Western education. But when I moved home, when I was 23, I became the environmental land director for Leech Lake, version of a DNR director. And I did that for 12 years. So I worked at the highest level of tribal government. Some might say on our reservation, the most political environment, right? I worked over our land department. And, we have a lot of lake shores, a lot of leasing issues, a lot of things that are there in a very political arena. But then I also now for the last 6 years have worked at the highest level of state government under the Walz-Flanagan administration for Minnesota state government. So I've had a vantage point of two different governments and seeing how they work and don't work and different societies and how those impacts are. So when I talk about a lot of this government and the civics part, that's my context for speaking to some of these things that are probably, seem a little bit out there, but at the end of the day, these are real things that affect our communities and our nations. And then two is as I talk here, please just interrupt me. if you use a question, don't hold it back, because it does no good if we don't have good conversations. We're not sharing knowledge, back and forth, because I'm going to be learning from you just as much as you'll learn from me. So I was a Native Nations rebuilder. I don't know. I think Nikita, you might have been. I think I remember seeing your picture, and so this is how I thought of the idea. I mean, this is where Tribal Civics came from. I was in my second session of rebuilders, and they're like, and honestly, my grandma was telling her how frustrated I was with things, and that, there was 20 something, there was all these rebuilders on Leech Lake, and yet I didn't hear any of this conversation. Why are we not talking about it? Why don't we have great conversations about this? And my grandma laughed and smiled, and she smoked every day. But anyways, she was smoking, and she goes, "That's because you young kids don't know how to farm." And I was like, "Oh, I don't understand what you're talking about, but okay, please tell me more." And she says, "Because you need to prep the soil. You can't just go plant seeds in the backyard and expect them to grow, right?" And light bulbs start going off. Then I start feeling like I'm really smart, even though she probably should have picked up 10 minutes earlier what she was talking about. But that's the whole point, is that we didn't have a community who was ready to engage. The populace, I mean, I heard multiple of you talk about the community, young people, all these folks. No, if they're not ready to engage, if the soil hasn't been prepped, if their minds, their spirits are not ready to have that conversation, or don't have that baseline, no matter how great and powerful the seed you plant, it probably won't grow. And so that's where, kind of the civics come from, and why I thought it was so important. And you're going to see this term on the screen. You see here, it's a Mino Bimadaziwin. It's a Anishinaabe world. It's a worldview. It's something that transcends politics, right? If you can be having a very horrible RBC meeting, like Reservation Tribal Council meeting, or whatever it might be, and somebody talks about this, somebody brings up this word, it transcends the politics, right? Becomes something they both can agree on. We both want a good life. We both want something that, we can both enjoy. And that's important, because we talk about traditions, we talk about our values, we talk about things, that all matters, but we have to have something that binds us together. Also, we get up from the table and we stop talking to each other, right? So we need to have that. And that's why when you talk about civics, and that's just an Anishinaabe. I want, I know that there's probably a Lakota, there's something in your community that binds you, right? There's something that you have that binds you together. And you have to have that in these teachings. I cannot stress that enough, because if not, individual issues, you lose that binder, that connectivity that makes you who you are. And so when I use that term, good life, or Bimadaziwin, that good way of being, please don't take that as you have to use the Anishinaabe worldview. That's not what I'm getting at. But I know that there is something in your community that binds you, and that's the placeholder for that. That's the part that is going to hold you together in the tough conversations you have to have, and you have to have them. They'll continue on. We have them in our community every day. So this course took me 10 months to kind of write, and it was basically, I started it after my first session at NGC and started writing it. And then basically after I graduated from the Rebuilders program, a couple months later, I took it to council. I took it to council, and with the support of our human resources office, with these needs, I showed them, these are the needs you have. You have citizens who don't even understand our election cycle. They don't understand what government really should be doing. They don't understand the relationship with the government. And how I knew that is I explained to them, each one that our families could all connect to, was that, you have these discussions. I think it was funny. Somebody brought up IRA government. I have an aunt, and she constantly is like reminding me of, like, Levi, this is an IRA government and it's not ours. And I'm like, yes, Auntie, I know. But it's ours today. Like, we can change it today. We can make it what we want. We can be whatever we want to be, but we have to do it together. And she laughs and chuckles at me, but she always comes back to the point of, well, we should do it our way. And that's where that Mino Bimadaziwin, that's the binder, right? That good way, how we need to think and look at each other. And when you talk about this, when it's led by the government, when it's led by the people, you end up with trust. you start to begin some transparency between the government and the people. Because without the people, there is no government. I often, when I teach civics, monthly, I think it's pretty ironic when people say, well, I'm not part of the government. I wasn't part of the government, but I am now. And I say, okay, well, who do you think, who makes up the government? Oh, my cousin or my aunt or this person. Okay, those are all human beings. Those are all our people. And that part is where you start to see the power that the people have. The people make up the administration, make up, every aspect of our government, which helps create some understanding. Because a lot of times, we just, without having the conversations, we don't have that prep soil. We don't have that understanding. And when we get there, it makes us weak because people can tell us lies, people can divide us, right? And if we're looking for sovereignty and our strength and where it is, our strength is together. Our strength is numbers. Our strength is being who we are. And each tribal nation has defined that, right? And I think that's what, when I asked NGC, wanted to partner with them on civics, this is what it was about, was sharing that message. Because I told them that even if Leech Lake becomes very strong over the next 25, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and builds that awareness, surrounding nations will struggle. And I don't want that. I want people to see and talk about their own government in a positive way, because our people are all connected. When the power trail goes on or wherever it's at, people are ricing, hunting, wherever they're at, visiting family, marrying, shacking up, whatever they're doing, they're going to other tribal nations. And so it's one of those deals where we're connected, right? And we have to share the knowledge we have. And so that's where a lot of that comes from. And again, Mino Bimadi's win. It's about honoring ourselves, our people. A little outline of the course. So, obviously I'm the head instructor. I do have somebody interested in training, but why I talked to you and I told you the story about who I was at first is because it matters. And how it matters is the first time I ever gave it's a 4-hour course. First time I ever gave the course to anybody, it was to 2 local Indian councils on my reservation. And one I was pretty familiar with, and the other one I wasn't as familiar with, but I felt like they were always very active and they supported sovereignty in my old role. This is after I just left my role as the environmental land director for Leech Lake. So I was giving this presentation to them, and afterwards, this lady who had been very honest with me, always very direct, but she was very critical of the government. And she come up to me and she looked at me and she says, "Oh, my boy, I can't believe, geez, why took you so long to do this? Why didn't we do this earlier?" And her name was Shirley. And I said, "Shirley," I said, "No, I had it all the whole time." I said, "But would you believe me if I still work for the tribe?" And she looked at me and she goes, light bulb goes off, and she's just like, "Probably not." I mean, they signed my check. If I'm in there talking about how good, things we need to do in our government or this and that, I mean, who do they think is saying it? Is it Levi, the fireman, Levi, the dad, Levi, the Anishinaabe? Is it McCoonts? Who is it? Who is talking at that moment? And so all I could say was that the tribe paid for my education. The tribe paid for my experience growing up on the res. The community, helped me, guide me through life. And that this was me just giving it back. And that's why that speaker is so powerful. And I still, to this day, when I do it for our human resources monthly, I don't have a contract. I tell people right back, I don't have a contract. I'm just here to speak and, share this knowledge with you all. And I even remind them too of the power of the people, right? You guys are talking about power of the people. I was reminding them, I said, yeah, I could swear and cuss in here and there's no HR policy. You can't fire me because I'm not an employee and I don't have a contract. I said, and I say tongue in cheek, we joke about it, but those are real things in our community. I'm sure you all know about those things, right? And so the presentation is another aspect. I try to make it as interactive as possible. I interject interactive questions. The materials I use, we've been another Rebuilder. Actually, after I'd done, the person I recommended to go to it, actually wrote a self-governance kind of handbook that we hand out to all of our participants. And the handbook has our history of our tribe, and kind of how we govern and things we do. And then the location is right in our human resource tribal training chambers. And then it's also given to the tribal college annually, to each of our school districts at the beginning of the year. And most importantly, it's a binding law. It's not just a policy. It's not just an HR policy. This was passed into tribal law, you know, right after I'd given it to the tribal council. They had, you know, and one of the things about the politics side of it and where it's at is I asked the tribal council to pass it blindly, meaning that I'd worked for them for 12 years and they knew what I was about and how I did business and the trust I built. I asked them to pass it blindly without ever seeing or approving the presentation, because I needed to tell the people that. I needed them to know that you didn't have your hands on this. And I know that sounds bad, but in reality, that's part of, you know, us learning to get this out and people to hear that message. And, you know, I hope over time as we go on with this, that message can change, but, you know, we struggle in our community still with that kind of messaging. It does matter. And the tribal council did. I don't think they were very excited for me to hear me say some of those words, but at the same time, they understood them, because before they were elected, they remembered that kind of conversation point. And they also knew, you know, that I wasn't in it to try to do anything or shape politics, but more or less empower people. And I heard you all mention that earlier about empowering each other. So how it came together, I'm not going to spend too much time, but it's, you know, it was the Rebuilder, being there, you know, development, wanting to serve my community, and then going to our local Indian councils, to our HR, then to the RBC and the political side of it. But I can tell you this, if you have the support of the people, tribal council tends to really just be supportive. Just, you know, as you guys get this rolling, how you do it, if you can get it to the people, the politics side of it kind of takes care of itself. Whatever you decide to do and how you shape that. Implementation. So when I started going through this, I really had a lot of people saying, well, Levi, you know, what's your content? Who are you trying to get this message to? And I just flat out told them that, you know, this was for the people. It wasn't for me to decide. I would give them a broad overview of our government, our treaties, where it was. I mean, our government never even shared with the tribal citizens about our budget. You know, we have $100 million budget. So you would have people post on Facebook, why don't we get a per cap? We have $100 million budget. Well, in reality, we should just tell the tribal citizens the truth, which is Leech Lake does not have a $100 million budget. We have a $20 million direct funding budget, and then an $80 million indirect funding budget, right? So the $80 million comes from outside entities, grants, you know, program fees, other things like that. And so you add $20 million, it's not as much as 100, and we weren't even doing that. And so that part of the content or the focus was more about being transparent, more about making sure those people who saw the government and then the people as separate, start including people in the conversation about your government, you know, and making sure that you're transparent. And that fear of doing that, I think, is from the BIA. I think it was the BIA who years governed us in a way where they kept us at distance and they didn't tell us anything. And then we took that, we've been using it that way. And, you know, so we talk a lot about that in civics, a lot about the importance of transparency in any role they do. And the picture you see there is just, I use Mentimeter. So those of you who ever do any presentations, try Mentimeter. It's very interactive. These are just some comments that was shared from a group, you know, I don't know how long ago, sometime ago. One of the things that's basic, I mean, that's really kind of like the simplest version of the civics starting out as I go through it is like just our structure, right? The IRA, why it's here. But I also reference the historical part of, you know, Turtle Island, here, the place we live, we all share here. And it's like, you know, the US government, they stole democracy. They took that from the indigenous people that were already here, right? And then they coined it and they told the rest of the world they're powerful and they got this. I mean, you can look at it like Ben Franklin literally cut and pasted the Iroquois Great Law of Peace, you know, for the US Constitution and those separation of powers. You don't really hear about that. You know, and I talked with our tribe a lot, and you know, it's powerful. It's changing when you start to realize how much we have offered this country, right? How much we've offered, and we're still here today. And so where that kind of gets rolling into the civics part is people have to own it. People have to understand why it's theirs. And again, the government, the people. Yes, we none of us were here to approve the IRA or be part of it, but we're here today. And you know, and I always try to remind people that, you know, our kids will look at us and ask what we did. Our grandkids will say, "Hey, what did you do?" And you have to ask each other that. What are we doing? What are we doing together? How are we doing it? And you have to deliberately have those conversations if you're going to talk about civics, because a strong nation is dependent upon everybody. And the only way to have everybody, you know, being there and being part of that is to make sure that people have the understanding, awareness of that. And a lot of times when people take ownership, that equals the self-determination, that equals the part of, okay, I may not like where my government's going today, but I have a role to play in it. Even if I lose an election, I should tell somebody what my thoughts are. Maybe they'll adopt that thought, and maybe they'll politic on that thought. Is it my thought? Is it my ownership of that idea? No, I mean, it's ours, right? As a people, we benefit from that. And I think, you know, it's one of those deals when we look at why civics and where it's at, is that we just need to try to understand as we go through this conversation about how important it is. It's our story. That we are the writer, right? We are the editor. We are the reader of our story. We have to be the one who tells all that. I mean, you look at, you know, academia has written more books about our tribal nations than probably any other people in the world, you know, and how often, you know, are we mentioned in the light we should be, right? So I'm going to pause, maybe take a second. Is there any questions, comments, thoughts people want to share, experiences?
I think that
Right.
you sharing federal Indian policy as it relates to you is really important, because I have quoted American Indian Religious Freedom Act and talked about how I was born after that was passed, and so allowed me to learn all the different languages and everything's beginning in Head Start. And so I was always really thankful for that. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that's absolutely important.
I think the other thing is Levi, I too was a rebuilder, actually the first cohort. So we were the actual guinea pigs in formulating the rebuilders. And it was a strong group of individuals and really speaking out, and how do we lend that support and continuing to have those discussions, you know. And like you said, you have a list of how many rebuilders are on your reservation or within your tribal nation, but what are they doing in a collaborative effort? And that's always been a question that I had, you know, and how do we further empower them or strengthen them in this process? Because we're all having the same conversations or similar conversations within each tribal nation. And so with that, when we started the plan and developing the plan to do constitutional reform, which was Jackie and myself, in developing the strategic plan and mapping it all out, we invited the rebuilders to assist us in being boots on the ground, being out in the districts, being able to share the Constitution. And for many of our people, it was the first time they ever saw a tribal constitution. So just giving them that understanding, that education was so important to that process. And I think, like you talked about, is gaining that trust. And I know Jackie can speak more to that as we went out in our communities, in our districts, working towards trying to make that positive change within our tribal nation. And if you look in history, Levi, we don't have a too good track record in any of our tribal nations and following through with constitutional reform or constitutional revisions. So I see this again, I'm going to say, as a springboard to developing that future changes in laws and protecting our rights as tribal people. So I think that's very important. So thank you for that, for allowing us to share that.
No, I appreciate that both. And, you know, one of the things I'll kind of go through first is like, you know, Cassandra, you talked about the laws, right? Knowing the laws and the history and being thankful for, you know, the time and your snapshot in time that you lived and got to live through and are seeing and sharing that with other generations, right? You know, I think that's really important. And, you know, when you're looking at, Valentina, when you were talking about rebuilders and stuff, that is the one thing that if I have any hope out of this is that when I'm an old man sitting there on the lake, you know, looking over, is that people are openly having conversations about our government, right? Not hiding, whispering about it or talking about stuff, but they're actively engaging and feeling it's a comfortable space to do it. And that it's a right space to do it. And that our rebuilders, you know, aren't thought of as like, hey, why are you bringing all these ideas here? You know, we need to carry this out, you know, and that change, there's a comfortable spot to have that change because that change equals the reform that we're all looking for. And I think, you know, you're talking about, I think we were talking earlier, there was a conversation about older folks and younger people. When we were here on Leech Lake, you know, a couple years ago, we started our constitutional reform. It's still going on. I was in a room full of probably about 200 tribal members, and there was a conversation being had about who should be the final decision maker on our constitution. Currently, the secretary is our decision maker, the final decision maker. A bureaucrat in DC is our final decision maker as a sovereign nation, right? And so there was a person in our community who was a little bit old, was probably old enough to be my parent, and they were talking about, well, we need to have somebody keep an eye on the tribal council. We got to have somebody's got to watch the tribal council. You know, we need to watch them. And I let it go for a while till I saw people my age nodding their head, being like, yeah, we got to watch the council because they're going to steal from us. You know, they're going to do this and that. And finally, I just had to, you know, and this is, I think, that age and that having that conversation, I just, kind of interjected and asked the person, like, do you trust me? And the person says, yeah, I trust you, Levi. And I said, okay, well, I trust you too. And I said that I don't trust people in Washington, D.C. to be our final decision maker. I said that I trust ourselves. I said, and elections are painful. I said, you know, if we elect the wrong person, in 2 years, we get to, you know, we have another election, or we have processes to vote these people out, and we should decide our own future. But I think it's still ingrained in our generations, you know, just how much the BI punished us for thinking we're sovereign, right? For letting us be our final decision maker. Something as simple as that, we had to have a long 2-month-long conversation just to get the BIA out of our constitution. That was not our fault. Somebody, you know, they ingrained that in us, that we couldn't take care of our own affairs. And I think that's what civics and, you know, this conversation and listening to you all talk about and plan for your own futures, that's the powerful part about it, right? Is we're taking ownership. And so when I look at the slides here, these are the 5 tenets, right, of nation building. And I take this picture here and I put it there because this picture, the woman in the middle is Helen Bryant. She's from Lake, you know, she's from the northern part of our reservation. And if you get a chance tonight, Google Bryant versus Itasca and Indian gaming, because Bryant versus Itasca was a tax case that is now the #1 cited case in Indian law. It's basically, it gets its origin, you know, tribal gaming after Cabazon. This was the original case. And this is a picture with her and out at the National Indian Gaming NIGA. They gave her a Lifetime Achievement Award. She passed last year, but one of those things where, you know, part of civics is also talking about our own history and our own, you know, those who forged and made it possible today. You know, that's why I said, Cassandra, thanks for sharing that part of your own vantage point in life. Because even here on Leech Lake, Helen Bryant's from Leech Lake, and we never even talked about her until recently in the last few years. I mean,
Here, the president they gave her like these coins. She had this coin she was given by the governor, by the president, all this stuff back in the 70s. And we were busy running gaming operations. We forgot about where it all came from. But when Ernie Stevens Jr. found out that she was still alive, he flew her out and they gave her this Lifetime Achievement Award. So I think that's part of civics, is celebrating our leaders and those who are there, who are willing to stand up for all of us. Again, you have to have comparisons. I use Nino Bimadazi Win, that good life, that worldview, that Anishinaabe worldview, and then I put it up against, BIA, the Rebuilders is called standard approach, or some people call it colonized. However, whatever word somebody wants to coin, that's something else. And how I talk about civics is we are on the left. When we were talking about our tribal nations, this is for us, Anishinaabe. These are the things I talk about. And I'll share the slides. I think we'll give them out to Michelle so you guys can all have them if you ever want to go back on them. But on the right, you see everything that's modern world. The modern world we're all touching, whether it's through the internet, our kids on their phones, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, right? That hopelessness, that crabs in the bucket, Democrats versus Republicans, right? It's not that this is the opposite of how we are, and how we view each other and how we should view each other. And that has to be ingrained in how we teach civics, how we talk about our nation. We are dependent on each other. I think it's funny, sometimes so how our civics works here on Leech Lake, one of the things I should probably tell you about is, so every month, every new employee or employee who hasn't taken the course has to take Leech Lake Civics. So we end up right around about from 10 to 20 people in a room with me, and we do 4 hours of civics. And I had about 3 years ago, I had a young man. He was basically doing facilities maintenance, right? He'd do the garbage cans, vacuum, do whatever needed to be done. One day he says, "Well, Levi, what does this got to do with me? I'm never going to do any of this stuff." And his name's Scott. He said I could use his name, but his name's Scott. I said, I knew his dad more than I knew him. I said, "Scotty," I was like, "Look," I said, "if you don't clean up the tribal chambers and stuff, all their stuff fills up in there." I said, "Do you think they're going to be able to have meetings?" "Well, no." And I said, if you're not cleaning and doing and making sure these buildings are able for people to come into, are they going to be able to come in and get services? "Well, no." And I said, "Okay, our old way would tell you everybody has a role in the community, and that's how we should view it. That's how important everything needs to be. And so don't ever downplay yourself." It was just one of those things where we were talking, but those are old teachings. Those are things how we viewed the world. And I think that matters when we're talking about our civics. We have to remind each other it's not a one-person show, right? Just like, Dr. Baker was talking about. And with that one-part show, I don't just leave people to be like on their own. I give them a snapshot on how they can take their selves and empower themselves, right? Is that, this is actually a slide from civics, just so so background, this is just something I cut and paste on this one. But, individuals need to support change. Own our future. Like, it's ours. It's not just own Levi Brown's future, own, somebody else's. It's ours. It's a shared. Because our kids are going to look back and say, how come they never did anything to fix it? They won't just say, how come you didn't? It'll be, how come you all didn't do anything? And then be the change we want. One of the things that I think was really ironic is I got so much flack when I would tell people why I did civics for free. Like, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, my friends, people who would be like, "Oh man, what are you trying to do? Just be trying to outshow us all." I mean, that was how I was having conversations with people. And at the moment I was talking about is that I told them I thought we just needed to change what it was. Why is it that every professional that we have for our tribe needs to have a contract to come back and give us advice when we paid for their education? I said, when experts testify in Washington, D.C. or state government, they don't get paid. They come and give their expert opinions on the laws or whatever they're doing because they love their nation or they speak for their nation. I said, shouldn't we have the same? And like, everybody gets all quiet. It's like, "Oh shit, Levi, you're just talking smack," but it's the truth, and that really matters. And that kind of goes back to that concept of changing our stories and how we go about them, right? How we will go about our daily business, which means we're changing norms. What's normal on the res? What's normal in our community, in our tribal nation? It cannot be them, those people, all those ones over there. It's all of us, whether, you know, we see each other in that good way every day, because it's not perfect. I mean, me and my wife argue about 50% of the time, and I'm probably right about 51% of the time. Just kidding. Just joking. That was a joke. But delayed reaction. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that, you know, we have to just see each other in a good light. We cannot always, you know, just be on the attack or thinking we have to know everything. Because believe it or not, I'm talking a lot now. I do not know everything. I really don't. And then just be okay with the spiritual wellness. I mean, think about for generations what has been done to our communities. And we have to accept that fact that our change we're looking at is generational change. You know, it's going to take time. But if we don't start now, you know, we won't be able to look our kids in the eyes and tell them we try to do something. And values matter. Again, it's one of those things where, you know, you don't have to be perfect, but if we're not living by our traditional values, those places, those reasons why we are here, we're going to end up just like state government, US government. I mean, those guys don't even have, I mean, I've watched them both. They have great constitutions, great laws, but the people who are implementing those institutions are imperfect. And that's where we need to go back to our teachings, because they talk about that we're not going to be perfect. We're going to be, you know, we're always going to have challenges. And then again, knowledge of the issues. Individuals are responsible for getting that knowledge. And that's where civics can come in. That's where the government can help provide that base for them to have knowledge, to have information. Because if people have knowledge, it's the basis for a strong nation. It's harder for people to come in with misinformation and weaken the government, weaken their nation. And then again, just look out for each other. A lot of times when I look at like the course empowerment, when I really get to the guts of it, is these things right here. And I these are one slide I probably will read a little bit off of, but you know, telling our story, supporting change, and giving the people the responsibilities, but also the ownership, right? If you're responsible for something, you tend to own it. And then knowledge of issues. I mean, I share a lot of examples of where government is weak, right? And what commonalities are in it. When I mean by government is weak, I'm not saying that, you know, the government is like taking over other countries. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at government weak is government's inability to connect with their people, government's inability to service their people, and most importantly, the trust that the government has from their people. And that is at the base of all civics. Like what we're talking about is how do you get people are going to have conversations, but how do you get them to have a conversation starting from the same point, right? That they can have the same conversation, which is we all own it. You can start there, start with the cultural, you know, that cultural binder. And so one of the things I do through the training is, and you guys already like kind of heard some of this, but I show them this slide and I'm like, I go through it and I'm like, hey, look at all this stuff here, you know, and I don't add COVID on there. And I'm like, oh, what about even COVID? And then, you know, I'm like, and I ask them, I say, how come, you know, how come we expect 5 people, our council's 5, so how can we expect 5 people to deal with all these issues? And I said, do you think they can? And everybody in the room's like, no, they can't deal with it. No, they can't deal with it. And I said, well, then why the hell do we go on Facebook and, you know, accuse them of not dealing with all this stuff? You know, and that kind of ties them back to the ownership part, right? Vast majority of them are the tribal members, employees, some connection to the tribe. And we even give the training to our non-tribal employees. About 25% of our workforce is non-tribal. And so we expect them to hold that same type of ownership or that responsibility. This is kind of about our worldview, and this doesn't matter, but I think, you know, within your own nation, within your own community, there's got to be something. You got to come together and figure out what that is. And why I'm saying it's important and vital is because you can have the greatest law, greatest written rules, policies, all that. If you don't have some worldview that ties you all together, binds it to it, you know, to those teachings or whatever it is, it just won't be able to take hold. Couple examples of the slides I do through the training is, again, I compare a lot. And these come from, I don't know if the Rebuilders program still uses some of the NNI stuff. I'm not sure, but that's one of the things I was working with NNI was, when I was doing my course, just wanted to focus on what we had done, specific examples on Leech Lake. Like an example, if you look on the right side over there, we basically had free camping. That was something part of our relationships with other governments. We pushed back on another government using our sovereignty, right? Not being afraid. Or if you look at an example on governing institutions on the left, people feel free to share a point of view, individuals share disagreements while continuing to govern. I don't know about how it is out there, but man, when I moved home from college, we had a tribal council that literally would almost fight at tribal council meetings, like damn near fight. That's what I came home to. And, when I left, even today, they may not agree, but they ain't fighting openly and whatever, and they're still governing. They still do their best to govern, and it's one of those things where that's a really important step. And that's the generational change. That's the part about, having the people hold leadership accountable. And then a little background on what we trained so far, about 1,100 employees on the government side. Now we have a lot of turnover in some government positions, so it's kind of where you only have to take it once, so it's in their HR file. About 60 gaming staff have taken it. Tribal college staff, school district staff are required. And then also, the college course, we have a tribal college here. The college course hopefully will be accredited next fall. It looks like we're on track. And that's big because it's going to be about us. It will be 100%, every aspect. It'll be like Leech Lake Civics, but we'll be able to dive into some of the sections we want to dive into that we think are important. So I told you about the interactive part of the Mentimeter I use when I train. These are the actual, from the date, you see the dates. These are the trainings and these are the answers they give. So one of the questions I asked the group is, what's the purpose of Leech Lake government? One option I give them is to give out money. And then you see the other ones there. And I was pretty sure, I was a little bit interested that, for how much complaining we do about not getting a per cap, like that you see on social media, the algorithms that show you that on social media, it's actually the lowest one when you ask a group of people, right? I mean, it's interesting. I always share that with people because the groups get to actively see where their cohort kind of responds. So it's kind of cool. This one's obviously an easy one. Does the government need the people? By the time they get done with the course, I have them leaving that, yes. If the people are not part of the government, there ain't nobody there to answer the phones, there ain't nobody there to provide service, all that goes away. So the people are the government, and the people have a tremendous amount of power over the government. They just have to, own it and take it back. Here's some good things they said about the training. There might be some negative in there too, I can't remember. But it's just about, I asked people to leave a comment about Leech Lake Civics, and so they just do. But I think I'm pretty close to time. I don't know, Michelle or Gilia, I don't know where I'm at on time, and this is the title slide that we have when I give the course, and we actually have it in our kind of rotunda of our HR. It's put out on a little thing. And it just talks about the story begins with us. We have to tell our story. If we don't, somebody else is going to tell it, and it's going to be way different and not what we wanted. So with that, I'll pause. Conversations, comments, or whatever the ladies would like me to talk about or not talk about, just let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Levi. We did just have some more time if folks have any more questions for Levi.
I have a question. It's a little off topic, but it kind of goes back to the first session when it was just Michelle, Makila, Marlon, and I think it was just the four of us, but we were talking about how it's the age of the influencer and how to get kids to do anything, it kind of has to be a TikTok challenge. So do you have any ideas on how you might innovate or kind of modernize this program to engage the younger kids?
So there's been people have asked me, like, hey, can we do a bunch of little videos about, civics. And I went and asked an elder in our community, and I was talking about my problems about that thing that Cassandra you're talking about, right? About how do we talk to people. And I come up with the fact that when we tell a lot of our stories, they take a long time. And that if we cut them up, we would do an injustice. And I think what I've come down to is maybe not stories, like full out, like, but more like you're talking about is narrating in a way using our language and images for our community, right? And how that, what the youth is seeing and how they're seeing it. So I went from like not wanting to do it to like, okay, well, I need to be creative when I do it. And I need to be positive when I do it. And I went back and I was talking to this elder some more. And she was, it's funny because she laughed at me and she was like, I knew you'd figure it out, And it was one of those things where giving them the roadmap to get to where they need to get to is almost as important as getting to that last point, if that makes sense. Like they'll get as much as they can along the way, and then they'll get to where they need to be, and then they'll decide the next path forward. And I really kind of believe in that, and that is the next step. Cassandra is doing that. So hopefully once I get the accreditation of the actual college course, I can start focusing some time, and because of NGC and others, I've had the resources to be able to do the Instagram and do that kind of posting and work within our community to do that stuff with our youth. Good point. Yeah.
Any other questions for Levi? I
So
think I have a.
if there's not,
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Oh,
No,
I
you
was
go
just
ahead.
okay. I just wanted to maybe ask something. Of, I'll share something. I didn't answer when you guys all answered, but when the questions 1 and 2 came about, and I stepped back out of my shoes and I thought about what I would have thought on 1 and 2. And I'm just be honest, these are my thoughts like when I was in my 20s, let's say. But if somebody would have came and said that same thing to me, I would have probably been like, what are you trying to sell me now? And I would have been like, why are you talking this Chimoke talk? And Chimoke for us is like white people, and so that's my original thoughts, and that was the barrier that I had to get over in my own self, which means my community, a lot of my community is probably trying to get over the same hump. And number 2, again, we write it, we live it. Our kids have to deal with what we write in our chapters, right? They're there. And that just kind of comes down to we're just in control. I said that because there was a lot of comments about power and responsibility, or power in the people. And I think every person that leaves Tribal Civics, at least for Leech Lake, when they leave, they feel a little bit more powerful. They feel like they're able to tell their they have their own responsibility to tell their council member what they really want, what's good for everybody. And that's, not just tell the council member what they want to hear, but to tell them what it really change needs to happen. And so just wanted to share that because I think I got to listen in on what you guys shared. I wanted you to hear what, my thoughts were on that. So sorry, McKelly, if you want to ask me a question.
No worries. I was just going to say, if you could travel back in time and give past Levi any advice as you were starting this for the first time, what advice would you give to yourself?
It sounds very bad, but I think I would probably tell myself to focus, to spend a lot more time focusing on, young people. And what I mean by that is like, the government is run by anybody over 18 for the most part, right? And so in our civics, the course, we're now in like 3.0 of the course. But I wish the first course that people touch people right away, I would have had those probably 500 people that took the course under that, because it has changed. I mean, it's been 6 years, it's changed. I wish I would have explained to them more how they own their children's future, right? Like they impact it. and that I'm in it with them together. We're all in it together. And I wish I would have just done more of that versus, and maybe it's hindsight. Maybe I would be wrong anyways, because I think at the time when I first started teaching the course, the first year of teaching it, I mean, I had people were still very cynical, still very we don't need this stuff. This is stupid. This is dumb. You had a lot of it, but they ain't taking the course. And then they come to the course and like, oh shit, man, this is really good. I'm glad I spent this Friday morning doing this. I'm glad, and so it took time to get that critical mass where we're at now. And that's the only thing I really think of, is just that I just want people to know that, it's about our kids, and what legacy we leave them, and giving them a positive place to talk about their government and not hearing how crappy it is. I mean, they get enough of that everywhere else in the world. We as Indian people can probably give them a little blanket and a little bit of comfort from not having to always hear that stuff. So that's just me thinking about our kids.
Absolutely. Thank you. So we have time for one more question. Does anybody have anything to ask Levi? All right. Well, go ahead.
I do.
Yeah,
If no one
please
else
do.
has anything, no, I just was thinking back to how I felt when we first started this, and I was like, I don't live on the reservation, so I don't know how much I can contribute, but I will still try. What do you what advice would you give to off reservation members about doing the Tribal Civics course?
Just I don't want to get the context wrong. So you mean like doing the course or writing the course or like implementing, talking about it?
Yeah, I think maybe not advice, but encouragement, because I felt a little discouraged because in our tribal constitution, as a member living in Rapid City, I don't have any ability to vote on matters. And so it's like I don't have a voice there in the tribal government. So I'm like, I'm still a tribal member, but I can't participate because of where I live. I live in Rapid City. So I mean, would you encourage members similar to myself to take the course even though they can't actively participate in their government?
So that's the part of not being them or us, right? Though them who are we have a huge urban population in Duluth and Minneapolis, right? Leech Lake does. And I have family that lives down there. And it's one of the deals where they often be, man, I know you just think I'm an urban native or whatever, and I'm like, man, no, you're my fam, we're, my cousin, and that's where we have to view it. So my answer to your question is no. I mean, we all have ownership, because here's the thing. I've watched so many people who grew up in the cities, like the little guy you're holding there. What if he decides wants to go live on the res or live, I mean, we don't know what chapter they're going to write. And so, we just have to be committed to our nations, each individual nation, and help support that nation become strong, which means we support our government, right? Even if we don't agree with it, you shouldn't, it's not like I'm saying agree with your government on everything they do. You should tell them what they're doing wrong. But if somebody comes up to you and says, Levi, are you a proud Leech Laker? Oh, heck yeah. And like I told you before, when I moved home after college in 2006, if you ask somebody that, they're like, man, I'm embarrassed to be a Leech Laker. This is bad, right? Back in 2017, we started a thing called Leech Lake Days. And now I think last year they had t-shirts. Kids are walking around and say, proud Leech Laker, sovereignty, sovereigns. I mean, just and we have this, and we hold this festival. I mean, this gathering that become a festival now because it's just so many aspects of it. But again, that brings people from off res there. People living just off the res or wherever they're at, and they all have an investment in it. And so Cassandra, never that imaginary wall that's there. I know that the Constitution says what it says, but you still are a citizen, and you have a responsibility to train people to talk about your nation and how powerful you all are. And that's the part that I think as people, when we say it to each other, it means even more, right?
Beautiful. Well,
Hold on,
thank you.
is that a question in the chat? Or is it?
Oh no, Michelle said that those t-shirts are coveted each year, which I believe because I think I heard Michelle when she was there this summer trying to get there early to grab one. So
I did. I zoomed in on a meeting from Leech Lake days at 9 a.m.
in line for the shirts.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty weird when I saw Michelle walk around with a Just Deadly shirt on. I was like, oh my God, Michelle, what are you trying to say, Michelle?
Love
Why do
that
our
one.
shirts
And
look Just
then
Deadly?
exercising my treaty rights with the Monoman, with the wild rice in the canoe. Like that is just so cool. And like Levi said, to see kids wearing them around, to see community members wearing them around is really, it's really very cool to see.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Levi. So this won't be the only time you all will hear from Levi. Levi will also join us in our last workshop to listen to your presentation, to talk a little bit more about future plans for his civics work, and then also to provide some feedback to y'all. With that, if we could give like a virtual round of applause. Thank you so much, Levi, for your time, spending time with us this evening, and we'll catch you next time.
Big woman.
All right, well, and then for everyone else, we'll go ahead and just do maybe a quick 5-minute break. Again, kind of a long session right there. So if we could have everyone come back at 7:20, we'll wrap up for the evening. All right, that was a quick break, but we don't want to take too long so we can send you off on to enjoy the rest of your evening. So we're just going to do a couple quick activities, kind of wrapping up and doing some visioning of what your civic might look like. So on the next slide, we've got kind of a fun little visioning exercise. We've done a lot of talking, we've done a lot of writing, and so today what I'd like you all to do is some drawing. So if you got a scratch piece of paper in front of you, pen, pencil, it can be the back of envelope, recycling, we love that. But just grab something to write on and a writing utensil. Give folks a minute to grab that. And so once you have that, what we're going to do is some future visioning. So really want to encourage you all to engage all of your senses and imagine that you've created and implemented your Tribal Civics project for your Native Nation. So you've just completed your first session. You had an amazing turnout with positive engagement. So what are the things that you see, what do you hear, observe, taste, smell? Again, really trying to fully envision this with all of your senses. And so we'll give you all about 5 minutes to draw this out on a piece of paper. Again, just really thinking about like how do you feel after a successful event. So any questions about the activity before we do some music?
Can you repeat it? I logged out and now I'm back on.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear the instructions?
No.
Okay, so what we're gonna do, if you could just grab a scratch piece of paper, we're gonna have everyone draw. And so I'll just read the prompt again. So I want you to imagine that you've completed your first session. You had amazing turnout, positive engagement. What do you see, hear, observe, taste, smell? Again, just really thinking about all of your senses and how that positive event feels afterwards. So again, give you 5 minutes to draw that out, and then we'll share some of your drawings if you'd like. So any more questions? Cool. We'll play some music and give you, maybe let's do 3 minutes. 5 kind of feels like a long time in the moment. So starting now.
cypress, cedar, and pine, painted paddles in our hands, pouring through this sacred land, water, song, spirit, and rhythm align. Blessings as we look to our Father Sky, seeing the eagle lift our oars up high. In Thanksgiving protocol, we ask permission to dip way down the mother's lifeblood will flow through her sacred ground. My people, my land, my people, my land. This is the way that life was given, the way we were made to stand. My people, my land, my people, my land. Honor all creations, reverence for this way of life.
Alrighty, so hopefully you all have some beautiful works of art in front of you. Would anybody like to share their drawing with us and explain what you did?
I could go ahead and go.
Awesome.
So I don't know if you could see it. Let's see here. Hold on. I'm gonna have to let me turn my blurred off here.
Ooh, yes.
So I drew like up front presenting, that kind of could be me or anybody. I drew like someone taking notes over here. And then I drew like in a circle, a bunch of people like outside, inside, and it's completely filled. And then of course food. You can't have a gathering in a tribal community if there's not food. So I gotta have food. But yeah, so that's what I envisioned and yeah, so
Love it. Love it. And I could definitely tell what all of those things were even before you said it. So you are an artist officially dubbed.
I'm normally not. So that must have sparked something in me.
There you go. Did anyone else want to share their drawing?
I don't know if you can see this. So it's just a microphone, a girl, obviously long nails, saying that this was a great experience because I think it'd be great to have that interactive piece at the end and kind of share out as a group, but any comments or questions. And it's not on here, but it smells like coffee because you can't have like anything without coffee in the and it sounds like kids walking around. And I know as a single mom, I had to take my younger toddler with me to class sometimes, and he's been at like all my Zoom meetings. So when I could hear kids, I could smell coffee, and yeah, it's just engaging.
No, I love that. And you are actually like an artist. That is a really good, I could not draw a hand in that perspective. So nice work. Anybody else?
I guess I can show mine. Let me
Oh,
see.
yes.
Turn on my camera. Could you see it?
Yeah.
I can't tell because I have a phone. Could you see it? See that?
Yeah, we can see it looks like steps.
Yeah, and it's the people starting at the bottom here, and it's to create a pathway utilizing steps to make a change for a more balanced government, for them to be more happier, or for hope for the future. Then there's a smiley face on the top.
Mm.
Yeah,
Love
the
that.
arrow pointing up.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see. Tina, I think I saw you come off camera a couple times. Did you want to share your work of art?
I think I would have been better if I could beat it as fast as they drew it. I can beat, but draw is a different story. But let me see if I can share this a little bit. I'm gonna turn my camera around.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not
you'd need
letting me.
longer than 3 minutes if you were gonna beat a scene real quick.
Yeah.
Unless you're that fast.
Okay. Can you guys see it? So I did ledger art.
Ooh.
For some reason, it's not showing, but
I wonder, do you have your background blur on, kind of like Nikina?
let me
That might be
see.
why.
Yeah, hold on. I had to switch because my computer was dying. Anyway, so I did a ledger art on a receipt, an old receipt. Talk about recycling. So anyhow, what it was is people gathering. I use symbolism. The smell of before we do anything is prayer, right? So the smell of the sage and cedar, and then also hearing laughter, excitement. So knowing that the environment was a safe environment, and the laughter, people being comfortable coming together at a common ground, because sometimes we use a lot of humor in that way. We can find that commonality in that humor, but also to sometimes heal that pain. We laugh so we don't cry, right? And some of it, and being real about, some of these feelings and the hardships we go through, and sometimes you get beat up for trying to be that change maker, right? And so in getting beat up, you still gotta pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving forward. And that's kind of the experience, in that, some of the people there, they're having that laughter, and hearing that, I think is always a good sign to have people coming together and how they want to move forward, and just the symbolism behind that as well. So unfortunately you can't see my awesome drawing. No one can see.
I love it
But
on a receipt. That feels very like
yeah.
modern ledger, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. It was a tire receipt.
Awesome.
But
Well,
thank you.
thank you. Thanks, Tina. And then, Alice, did you want to share? No worries if you want to keep your art all to yourself.
No, I got it. I got it. Let me see. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So here's my little drawing there. It's a circle of people holding hands. And so it just to me it represents that, everyone works working together, and we always when we do things, it's always in a circle. And so that's what my drawing represents, the connectiveness between everybody. Down here I don't know if you could see my drawing there, but I know it's like cool art, but it's like our, what did I have on there? Our positive change. So like our new policies that we would create together. On here I wrote circle of participants, the people. I hear positivity in the room about their accomplishments and the start of a new form of traditional government for the people. And when I read that part about taste, I always think of soup, because when we gather as natives, there's always soup there, and I just love the smell of it, and I love the smell of the fry bread and that meal that we all shared together for thankfulness. So that's kind of what I had.
Michelle will vouch for me that I am a soup person. I had soup tonight, so I definitely think we need to have soup at every event. So,
I agree.
uh, well, thank you all for kind of indulging us. It's just kind of fun to use some of our other creative sides of our brain. And so, even though maybe we don't consider ourselves artists, I do think it's important to spend some time drawing and just using our mind in different ways. So then just wanted to kind of pop into more group discussion. We'll just jump right into the Jamboard, and Michelle will add to the Jamboard as you all answer. So Michelle, I think your screen might need to be shared on a different to get to the Jamboard. There you go. So the first question, and just whoever feels like they have an answer right away, feel free to pop in and just have other people add. But the first question is going to be, why is right now the time to implement a tribal civics initiative? So I'll just pause to see if anybody has any immediate thoughts.
I think right now there's a lot going on, at least nationally, with like indigenous knowledge, or the sharing of knowledge in native communities. So I feel like that is something. And then also I feel like now more young people are kind of stepping up too and trying to determine what their role is too. So I feel like those are two things.
Mm. Absolutely, yeah. We really have seen like nationwide, really this push of Indigenous empowerment, kind of stepping in and taking over for our own communities, which hasn't been the case, until somewhat recently. So that's really exciting. Anybody else have anything more to add about why right now is the right time?
I think it's a good time right now that we're past the pandemic and we're able to gather as groups and we're allowed to meet face to face, no mask mandates. I think this is a really powerful time to come together physically. Hopefully, we don't like have anything else come up that limits us meeting face to face, but that popped into my mind.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think people have really been starved for this like community connection. And so this seems like a time that folks are really wanting to come together and be in person. I say that ironically as we're like on a Zoom right now, but still virtually in community. Any other thoughts?
This is Alice. I just think that people are just wanting change now. And I think it's when you get young people that's interested in change, this is the time to do it and to get them involved in it. And we all get educated together, because, myself, it's pretty new to me, even though, like Jackie and the girls here, they were a big part of the, trying to do the constitutional reform here. I followed them, but I wasn't really engaged that much. So I think this is the time, and I'm glad to be a part of this.
Absolutely. Yeah, kind of building on some of the work that folks in this group have already done, to really make sure that your communities are where they need to be is really important. Anything else?
I think we should also note that next year is an election year for like the national presidential election, and I think what we're doing here can be transferred over to like the national kind of structure and how important it is to vote and all of that. So
Yes, for sure.
I think the other important piece is, given the climate at this time, is really empowering our young people, but also to hold the responsibility to help guide them in this process. And so, not to limit or restrict them, but to help guide them, and so that they feel that they have a strong foundation to move forward in creating that change and implementing the change. Because, for the most part, the strength behind our people is our future leaders, and being able to plant those seeds, nurture those seeds, and empower them. So I think that's where I'm coming from at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? All right. Well, we're going to skip the next question. I feel like we've talked quite a bit about kind of the impact to community and whatnot. So we'll just go ahead and transfer into our closing and next steps. This Jamboard, where we've been kind of capturing your thoughts and questions, we will send out as a PDF, so you all will be able to reflect on some of these answers after the workshop is over. So going on to the next slide, one thing that is we will be having these Nourish Your Mind resources. So we've kind of split them up into required and recommended. We tried to keep the required stuff pretty light because we know that we do only have a week in between these workshops and you all are busy people. But we would love for you all to read pages 14 to 19 and page 29 in the Tribal Civics Guidebook. Those will cover some things that we'll be talking about in our next workshop, so it'd be great to have kind of the primer on that. Also would love to have folks fill out the Open in a Good Way sign up sheet. I know folks mentioned that the link wasn't working, so we will make sure, maybe we could even just do this now, if you wanted to pull that up, Michelle. Did anybody want to volunteer for any of our workshops? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 upcoming. We do have 5 of you here today. So I don't know if folks maybe wanted to take one each. Did anyone want to volunteer?
I'll volunteer for the first one.
Okay. Great. So we'll put Tina down for next week's. How
I could
about
do the third.
Perfect. Nakina for workshop 3.
What do you mean? You wanna, is this we run the sessions?
Yeah, actually you will take over my job and I will just sit. No, I'm just kidding. What we're asking is for folks to open us up in a good way, so whether that's a prayer or a song, whatever kind of feels good to you.
Oh, okay. I'll take 4.
Okay. So that would be the December 5th section. And then let's see, anyone else feel called for maybe our action planning sessions?
I can do the first day.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I guess I'm left with the last one there.
There you go. I wasn't going to volunteer you, but thank you very much. Great, so we've got that taken care of. So we'll try to send you all reminders to, again, this isn't like you don't have to plan anything super elaborate. Really just like kind of modeling how Michelle did, and someone else mentioned how important it is to open with prayer. So yeah, don't stress about this, but thankful that you all have volunteered here. So that is updated. And then we also have another Jamboard, which is really just a place for you to answer the reflection questions that we have for you. So some of these questions we've kind of answered in a group, but also would love for you all to spend some more time reflecting between now and next week about why is right now the right time for a Tribal Civics initiative in my
Turn it
community.
down a little bit, babe.
What? Sorry, did you say something, Alice?
Sorry, I was telling my granddaughter to turn her
Oh.
thing down.
No worries. And then the second question is just that, is there anyone else in your community that has knowledge or skills that would be willing to share with the team? Maybe they're folks that should be added to your team, or just folks that could be a resource as you're pulling your content together. So you can either answer these questions kind of in your own notebook, and we'll transpose them here when we come together next week. But mostly just want you to spend some time in reflection on those questions. And then, so we'll go back over to the slides. So then those are the kind of required Nourish Your Mind. And then the next are just some recommended if you have some extra time. Again, thinking if there's additional folks you'd like to have join your civics team. If you all as a team wanted to meet to kind of debrief without Michelle and I there, just to kind of talk about ideas you have, any questions you might have for us. And then we also have linked a handful of kind of cultural resources that you might want to use in your Tribal Civics initiative. I'm sure you're aware of a lot more than what we listed here, but this is just kind of a initial start to kind of look through. So any questions about the Nourish Your Mind resources?
Was this PowerPoint shared in the email?
Yes, and we will make sure to send it out if we didn't, but I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
already been shared out. We'll also send like kind of a in list form these different items too, so you'll have them.
So the pages that we have to read, is that also in here?
Yep, we'll send that out in an email. We'll always do like a post workshop email where we'll kind of list out what we would like you to do before the next time we meet.
Okay.
And it's only like 5 pages, I think. So it's nothing too intense. Any other questions? Wonderful. And so uh, that is okay. So evaluation. So we mentioned how important it is for you all in your civics initiatives to gather feedback from your participants, and so we like to practice what we preach, and really love to hear from you all about how you thought this workshop went anonymously. And so Michelle will drop a link in the chat. So if you all could spend just the next couple minutes completing that. We also have a QR code if that's easier for you to get to. So we'll play some music, let you have a few minutes, and then we'll come back together for a couple final closing items.
Somewhere in your heart you'll find we're fighting for our right to keep the future bright and protect the ones we love. treat her with disrespect, then what message have you left for your children and their home? In the river is our sisters and our brothers. We are camping out for each other. We are stronger when we band together, and we're standing up for the water. Don't poison the future away. How can you take and take and not appreciate the soil? Don't let this black snake contaminate our drinking water. This is for our sons and daughters. In the river is our sisters and our brothers. We are camping out for each other. We are stronger when we band together.
Alrighty, so I see we've got some responses coming in. Folks talking about how they're going to be engaged in their tribal communities, going to read and become more informed, writing down and keeping a list of personal brainstorming, working in collaboration with a group to focus strategies and discussions, and to remind other off-reservation tribal members of their responsibility to their native nations. So thank you all for taking that time to provide us with some feedback. If you aren't quite finished, no worries, just keep it up. We'll just do a couple more slides and then we'll send you off so you can finish the survey there. So that we are pretty much done with our first workshop. You all have made it through the overview of tribal civics. So again, this is really just hoping that you all are excited about this. You probably have more questions than answers at this point, which is totally fine. Hopefully we'll kind of narrow in and get some more concrete steps throughout the workshop series. We're going to be coming together again next Tuesday evening. Really going to be heavy on the brainstorming and group discussion, so come ready to talk about your goals, topics, and community resources that you'd like to include in your tribal civics course. And then on the next slide, we have our final quote from Miss Tina that you might recognize. So here, Tina shared with us, self-governing people must constantly attend to the historical and the civic education process by which raising the generations that owns the past and takes the helm and charts the course for the future. And so this feels really appropriate to kind of the conversations we've been having today about really doing this for our children, doing this for the next generation. And I'm really excited to be with you all on this journey. I hope you all are excited and proud of yourselves for showing up tonight and continuing to show up for your communities to bring civics. So that's kind of all we have for you all. Did folks have any questions or comments before we go?
No, but thank you so much for your time and sharing your energy with us.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.